What is up, Everyday Athlete Podcast Network listeners? Thanks for tuning in to this latest Fireside Chat. We have a repeat guest today. I'll be chatting with Jeffrey Weiss, author of Racing Against Time. We're going to be talking about the promotion of his book as he moves along, the idea of writing another book as he's promoting this current book, plus the state of his training as he looks forward to 2026 potential events. Improving the race against time. Before we bring Jeffrey on, please do me a favor and subscribe, rate, and review the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. If you're using Spotify or YouTube, do not forget to leave us a comment. We want to make sure we are giving you everything you could possibly want out of this podcast. Commenting, subscribing, rating, reviewing absolutely helps us with the algorithm. But in all honesty, the reason why I'm asking you to do that is I love engaging you guys in conversation. So when I wake up every morning and I see comments on YouTube or I see comments on Spotify, it inspires me and motivates me and allows me to become a better host for these podcasts that we've been doing. Also, if you haven't joined the Everyday Athlete Clubhouse, check it out, runtrymag.com. Go over to the shop tab on the menu. It'll give you a drop down for the Everyday Athlete Clubhouse. Join us there. It is relatively inexpensive. $15 a year, $25 for a lifetime, and the benefits start the moment you purchase your membership, from discounts from marketing partners to invitations into our private Slack channel, as well as exclusive content just for our EAC members. So be sure to join the Everyday Athlete Clubhouse. We really appreciate you doing it. It is the most supportive club that is on the internet and will be in real life this year, 2026, as Santino and myself make our way to 6 cities, doing 6 races over the course of 7 months, starting with the Oakland Marathon at the end of March, which, by the way, reminds me that on February 5th at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, we will be hosting a panel discussion with the race director for the Oakland Marathon and a community advocate for Oakland. Make sure you join us there. It is a panel discussion. You can get the Zoom link through our stories on Instagram as well as on Threads. Looking forward to seeing you there. So enough of my voice and only my voice. Let's bring Jeffrey onto the show and let's have a great conversation. Jeffrey, how are you?
Good. How are you, Jason? Good to see you again.
You too. I cannot believe it's been 4 months since we last chatted.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful 4 months, but really great to talk again.
Okay, so it's been a wonderful 4 months. Help me understand why it's been a wonderful 4 months.
Actually, kind of ironically, it's not been a 4 months marked by new races and new stories about those races. I actually got hurt very shortly after you and I last chatted, so I've been going through an extended rehab period. In some ways, one of the tougher ones that I've ever gone through. I mean, I think injuries are unfortunately a part of endurance sports, especially the longer races. But this one has really kind of required me to dig deep. I've realized that yoga has been a huge part of my recovery. I had been doing it for a few months before we last spoke, was hating pretty much every minute of it, but felt that it was important for me to do it. I was really only doing it about once a week, dreaded it, really hated pretty much every minute of it. But now I've really kind of fallen in love with it because now I really see what it does for my body. I'm now doing it 3 or 4 days a week. And essentially with every session, I can see progress, which has been absolutely amazing. So actually, I'm not running right now, but hopefully will be in about a month. But I'm doing the elliptical, swimming, cycling, doing everything but running, and can't wait to get back out there on the trails.
It's interesting. I want to dive into this a little bit more, but I want to start with this. For me, since I've gotten into the sport of running, which is now entering its 19th year, I've always held this mindset that I learned from watching professional sports in the U.S., basketball, baseball, football, that the greatest ability an athlete can have is availability. And so injury prevention and all that stuff has always been top of mind for me. And so on a very regular basis, 4 to 5 times a week, I do about 10 to 15 minutes of core and balance work. And that balance work involves yoga as well. And it's literally 10 to 15 minutes. Right now, my wife and I are rewatching The West Wing. So I throw on The West Wing and I do my 10 to 15 minutes. And then I sit down and watch Josh Lyman lose his mind over whatever topic he's losing his mind over. And so I say all of that because I want to understand your thought process when it comes to endurance sports athletes and what seems like this absolute avoidance to uh, injury prevention, whether it's through balance, core, stretching, strength training. Like, why do you think we avoid that at all costs? It seems like until it's too late.
I think the trap that some of us fall into, and certainly I've been as guilty of it as anybody, is we think of our core activities, not our core as in the core part of our, but we think of our running as that's our sport, our swimming, that's our sport, our cycling, and then activities that strengthen our body, make our body more flexible, more resilient. Those can be the first things that we give up on if time is short, and we pay a price for that. So I think, and I have felt that I've done well most of the time in the past with prehab and identifying weaknesses and strengthening those. And there's no great secret about that. We do need flexibility. We do need core. We do need balance. Absolutely. None of this is controversial or surprising. And yet,
I would hope not. I hope it's not controversial.
Yeah. And yet so many of us, and again, I'm as guilty as anybody, can lose track of it, especially when things are going well. You think, okay, I've got this. And I think for me, I mean, in the 8 months before I got hurt, I did a 50K and 2 marathons, and was looking forward to the next one, and now have realized, okay, I need to take a breath, really focus on getting my body to where it needs to be, and really need to commit myself on a going forward basis, not to have to relearn this lesson, but to really stay on top of things in very much the way that you were describing, with very regular work on my balance, my flexibility, and particularly on my core.
And here's the thing, right? You're an Ironman athlete. And so you have cross-trained, for lack of a better phrase. You've swam, you've cycled, you've run. And I'm going to guess that when you were doing those 3 things, the opportunity for injury was lessened because you were using different muscles, doing different things. And yet endurance athletes, regardless of the sport that they're in, tend to not want to do the other 2 sports in this particular instance, right? So if you're a swimmer, this idea of getting on the bike for 30 minutes or running on a treadmill for 20 minutes seems, out of this world. For runners, the idea of getting on a bike and everything else. And again, I just wonder, is it because running is our sport and that the way to get better at running is to run more, right? And yet I think I profess this to the athletes I coach. You want to become a better athlete. Once you become a better athlete, you will become a better runner. And so I profess that to them when I'm doing it. Is it true that for yourself that you felt kind of like, yeah, look, I'm swimming, I'm cycling, I'm running, and I feel much healthier than now today where you've had the injury and it's like, okay, now I got to press, reset and go back to the beginning?
I think it's interesting. I mean, running is such a unique sport. And I really miss it and really appreciate it right now when I can't do it. There's no sport like it for really clearing your head, for really getting out in nature, for just really enjoying the fact that you can move your body. And as much as I love swimming, and as much as I love being on the bike, I think running is quite unique. I do agree with you. I think for folks like me who have always cross-trained, we can allow ourselves to think that we've got this and we don't need to attend to the other things that really safeguard our bodies. But I think for me now, as I've been going through this injury process, it's wonderful that I have different sports that I can tap into, because at the beginning of my recovery, the only thing I could do was spin. And for the first few weeks, that was it. Then slowly brought swimming back, took a month or 2 before I could actually do a proper workout. Then slowly got back on the elliptical until finally I could do a proper workout there as well. And so I can see the running is right around the corner, and it's really exciting. And the yoga has been quite a discovery. I just remember just the very first moment of each session, it was like, oh God, here we go again. And now it's like, oh, this is wonderful. here we go again. And it's been really exciting to discover that. And it's kind of reinforced this notion that you really have to give new activities a proper try before you can say, you know what, this one's not for me. And you can be quite surprised at what actually in the end turns out to be the best thing for you.
When you first got started in yoga, were you like me? And I will define what I was like. I wanted to win at yoga, right? My mindset was, if my nose isn't touching my toes, like I'm not doing it well enough. Like I need to win at yoga. Like, so when you got started, was that like sort of the mindset? Like I need to win at yoga.
No, it's funny. It was in some ways the opposite. It was like, I suck at this. I will always suck at this. I can't imagine being able to do these movements properly. I know I should be doing it. I know it must be benefiting me in ways that I can't appreciate, but I really am awful. Now, as I've been going through the recovery, I just can tell and I see the progress virtually from every session. This is helping me. And so now actually I have gotten a bit competitive in the sense that I want to push through the pain. And the instructor is always reminding me, that's not how you do yoga. Like, don't push through the pain. But it is a balance, because I have found a piece of advice that I got from one doctor early on was, it's okay to essentially work out into the pain to a certain point, and you have to figure out where that balance is. If every time I felt a little bit of pushback, I pulled back and stopped the activity, I wouldn't have progressed as rapidly as I have. So the key is to find that right balance, which, it's a metaphor for all of this stuff. But I have to say, like, I feel like a lot of the things that I experienced with racing, with Ironman, really they've been there for me as I've gone through this, because it's a battle. It takes time, but the progress comes with effort, and that's been actually quite exciting.
It's super interesting to me because I often talk about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, which is sort of what you're talking about with this idea of stretching past the moment so that you can get better. And then obviously flexibility improves. And in which case, when flexibility improves, injury prevention gets better too. And it's really, really hard to know when that tipping point, or where that tipping point is, and not pushing yourself from one injury into the other, right? And so perspective, I think, plays a key role in this, in knowing, what do I want to accomplish? Where was I yesterday, and where am I today, and where do I want to be tomorrow? As a person who has written a book, a person who has run businesses, like, has perspective outside of yoga and outside of sports, so running a business, writing, being an author, played a role in how you understand what being comfortable with the uncomfortable moment is, and then knowing when to hit pause and then come back the next day?
I think for me, I think it's a couple things. I think, and I do feel like writing, the business world, endurance sports, there are a lot of the same themes in all of them, which is, for me, one of them is, for things that really matter, for things that are important, they take time, and you just have to be comfortable with that. And so, so for me, the rehab, I always knew, like, it's going to be a process. It's going to take some time. And especially I needed to reassure myself of that in the first month and a half, where the progress was really slow. Now it's picking up pace like crazy. Almost every day I'm seeing changes and improvements. And, and truly, I just feel like running is right around the corner, which is incredibly exciting to me. But I think things that are important to you, they're going to take time, and you have to be okay with that. And I think that's really it. Just to have, I used to say, like, to folks that I worked with, you need two seemingly contradictory attitudes when you're working, for example, with a startup. You need to have a lot of patience, and you need to have a great sense of urgency, and you need both things. And I think it's true in sport as well. I think you need to have urgency in the sense that I can't miss this workout today unless I have an incredibly compelling reason, because it's going to cost me in the long run. And at the same time, this race that I'm getting ready for example, an Ironman, it might be a year away. And I need to be able to stay focused, be patient. It will come. And I just need to stay the course. So you kind of need both things. And I think that that injury recovery is its own special challenge. But yeah, I feel like the things that I've done in the past have helped make this a much easier process for me.
I think that's a key lesson for athletes who are just getting started in our sports, or if they're in our sports or looking to go and go a little bit longer to the next distance, is that patience slash urgency. So you mentioned something about not about having a super compelling reason for not doing a workout. It's 5 p.m. on the West Coast here where we're recording, and I have a run scheduled for after this show. And so let's say I get started at 6:30, I'll be done at 7:30 p.m. For a lot of people out there, they would be telling themselves, there's no way I'm doing that run at that hour of the day, and have set their alarm for 4 a.m. and got their run in earlier this morning. For me, I want to sleep in. I don't mind running later in the evening, but I know that I'm not going to skip the workout, and that's the urgency part of it. Like, I'm not going to skip this workout because on March 22nd, I'm running the Oakland Marathon with the goal of running 3:45, and it's my first marathon in 14 years. So when we talk about patience, right, it's been 14 years between marathons. So I think inadvertently you've given some great advice to runners and endurance athletes in general getting into this sport. And I wonder if that's something you learned on your own, or was that something that people were telling you as you were building startups, as you were becoming a writer and an endurance athlete, or was that something you learned through experience?
I think it was a combination. I think it was experience, but I also, for me, in all different spheres of my life with endurance sports, I tried to read as much as I could when I was getting into it. And I loved hearing other people's stories, in part because they were entertaining and exciting and interesting, and in part because I found valuable insights and tips and things of that sort that really helped me with my training, helped me with picking races, helped me with just basically developing the right attitude toward workouts and toward sport. In the business world as well, when I moved from being a lawyer in private practice to joining a startup back in 2012, read a bunch of books on business. Jim Collins has several really terrific ones, Good to Great, and another one as well that I quite enjoyed, and read a bunch of others in addition to that. And so, and with writing as well, years and years ago, I felt like I wanted to become a writer, and actually read dozens of books by writers on writing before I actually attempted to write my own first book, which I did back in the 90s. Actually, my first book came out in 1998. And then my second, which in some ways came out of the first, started that one in 2007 and didn't finish it until 2022. So it can really be quite the marathon effort in its own right. But I enjoy things that take a long time, as long as they're interesting. And, endurance racing is endlessly fascinating to me. Writing is endlessly compelling to me. And the business world is extraordinarily exciting.
In the green room before the show, we were talking about writing and how you're in the process of promoting your book, Racing Against Time. And I asked you, have you started putting together thoughts on what the next book is going to be, in figuring out how to balance? I need to promote this book. Simultaneously, I'm ready for the next thing. And you said that you were in the process of putting some thoughts together about this next book. But one of the things that I found intriguing was this idea of research for yourself, like researching to write the book, as opposed to this is a topic I'm fascinated about and I want to write about it. Is that also because of the experience of writing a book back in 1998 and then putting a book together most recently again, that's the process that works for you? Is, I think I like this topic, but let me do some research on it, as opposed to, I like this topic and I'm going full bore into it?
Yeah, I mean, I think this book, Racing Against Time, in some ways, I think was maybe the second fastest, but it was a pretty fast book for me to write from start to finish. Maybe it took me 4 years. And so that's a pretty long-term process. And I want to make sure before I start writing that the topic really is going to be as compelling to me years from now as it is today. I've always analogized a book topic as being much like a long-term relationship. You want to be able to sustain passion and interest over the long haul. You don't want to wake up 2, 3, 4 years down the road and feel like, why did I pick this topic? It's really not that interesting to me. I want to be excited every time I sit down to write. I want to be excited every time I pick up another piece of research that's going to contribute to my ability to write that book. And I like thinking long term. I mean, I do. I'm fairly sure what the book after the next book is going to be. I have in mind to write about basically my fitness adventures in my 60s, tentatively thinking of calling it the 7th decade. But what I'm already finding about a third of the way through it is, the challenges are more. The rewards in some ways are also more. Started off kind of with a bang, ran a 72 miler and then did a 50-mile trail race, which was an extraordinary experience for me. Did another ultra marathon, a couple of marathons. I really have tackled this the 6 world majors entirely in my 60s, and look forward to finishing it within my 60s. Have 3 more to go. But this injury recovery process has also been very, very demanding to me and for me. And I realize that there'll have to be some compromises along the way, more attention to the kinds of things that you've been talking about, flexibility, balance, core, and all of the rest. And so it's quite a journey of discovery. And hopefully, and it'll depend on how it all plays out, but hopefully there will be something in that. I would love for that to be something of a sequel to Racing Against Time. But I also want to do something before that. And so just looking around, trying to see if I can find something that really will hold my interest for quite some time.
It's super interesting. As you were talking, I was thinking to myself, the book that you write, the 7th decade concept, you don't know what's going to, there's no conclusion to the book as of right now, right? Like, this injury could have been short, might be longer than you expect. And so that changes everything. And I just thought to myself, how difficult would it be to put together notes and assemble a book without knowing where it might be heading?
Well, that was certainly my experience with Racing Against Time. I mean, I had been far enough along in my journey that I felt like, okay, there's something here. There's an arc to it. It makes sense. There's been some dramatic progression that I'm quite excited about, that I think others would benefit from hearing about. But where it would all lead, I wasn't quite sure when I first started to write it. Ironman wasn't initially on my radar screen when I first started to think about writing it. I was much more focused on ultras. But then as it all played out, and a fail in my first long ultra led me to Ironman. And then that became much more of a focus for me, and really I found quite rewarding. So here as well, I am an American. I do like happy endings, and so I don't believe in just writing about, hey, here's a bunch of stuff that happened and there's really nothing there. I do hope that it will lead to something good, and something that will be entertaining, but also that I can learn from, that other people can learn from. But ultimately will be satisfying in terms of its progression. And I do kind of look at life that way. I look at life as a journey toward a destination, hopefully toward multiple destinations, multiple mountains, new challenges to take on, and we'll see where that leads. But I can see already, at age 63, it's evolving, and I think that's a great thing. But I think something we need to take seriously.
It's interesting. I was nodding my head, for those of you who are listening to this episode and not watching it on YouTube. I was nodding my head as Jeffrey was talking about the journey, because we have a hat that has the label on it, "Enjoy the Journey," because we don't know what the finish line might look like. We may have visions of grandeur. We set a PR, we get on the podium, whatever it might be. But some days it's not in the cards. But if you've enjoyed the journey to that process, or through the process, excuse me, then the finish line, it matters, yes, but it tends to matter a little bit less, because you've enjoyed those days, weeks, months, maybe even years of training up to that point. And so I'm wondering, and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if Jeffrey really enjoys the process of writing and writing for himself versus this idea of writing to get to a conclusion so that the book sells, right? And I'm using the book selling as like hitting that finish line, because we might think we want to sell 10 million copies and maybe we sell a million or whatever those numbers are. But if you've enjoyed putting the book together, does that sort of take away the sting if the book doesn't do as well as you had hoped it would do?
I think very few writers write with an expectation that they're going to, in a meaningful way, profit financially from having written a book. I think those who do are probably setting themselves up for some pretty significant disappointment. I think writing is a uniquely, I think for a lot of people, it's a uniquely delightful activity. It's actually something that I enjoy even more so than physical training while I am doing it. I really do find myself entering a flow state very often when I'm writing. And I love the feeling of going from a concept to an outline, to a more detailed outline, to a first chapter, a fifth chapter, an eighth chapter, and then it starts to actually take form and take shape. And to me, that's incredibly exciting. In terms of its success afterward, that's so much out of my control. For me, it's mostly, and the issue is, did I hit my target? Did I write something that I'm proud of, that I feel like captured what I was trying to do? And that's really, for me, how I measure the success. I mean, of course, look, I love it when people read the things that I write. I love hearing feedback about them, but the main goal is to really write something that I feel like I can be proud of when I'm finished.
Yeah, like I said in the opening to our show, I love talking to people. This to me is everything I could possibly have hoped for. This company, when I started it, is getting to meet interesting people like Jeffrey Weiss. And when I see comments on Spotify and YouTube, that is super gratifying. I'm also in the business of sales, and we don't land brand partnerships on an everyday basis. And so I have to really enjoy these conversations. Like, this is my investment into this business, is these conversations with you. And I want to bring up another member of the Everyday Athlete Clubhouse, Becky Robinson, who owns a publishing company. And she posted on LinkedIn earlier or late last week, I guess, that she had been speaking with an author who said that writing a book is a gamble. And she said in her post that it's not a gamble because, one, it's an investment into yourself as the author. You're writing it. It's how you feel. It's something you enjoy doing. And it's almost like a service to others. If you have something that you're so passionate about that you're going to spend days, weeks, months, years putting on paper so that you can help service others, the financial windfall that may not come is secondary in most cases. And I think you just said the same exact thing, just in different wording.
Yeah, no, I think she's 100% right. I couldn't agree with her more. And I also, for me, it's funny. Like, there are lots of folks that you'll meet along the way in life who have done a single marathon as a bucket list item. And I am not a huge fan of the bucket list mindset, the bucket list approach. That here's some cool things I want to do, each of them one time, and move on to the next one. And for me, it's sort of more about what kind of person do you want to bring? What do you really want to bring into your life? And for me, that first marathon that I ran back in 2012, at the time I thought of it as, this is my one and only marathon. I'm going to show myself that I can do a marathon. It is going to be like a one and done bucket list kind of approach. And then realized, no, actually, I want to be a marathoner. And I want marathons and later ultras and all the rest to be part of my life. And it's the same with writing. I want to write for the rest of my life. And I want there always to be more books. And who knows whether the book that you're writing today, however proud you might be of it, that may not be the book that ends up defining you. It might be the one after it or the one after that one. And that's okay. I think that's part of what makes all of this exciting. We just don't exactly know how the movie's going to finish. And we just need to keep moving forward and realize that a lot of this is outside of our control, and just have fun.
The beauty of these conversations, like I said, is I get to meet interesting people, but I also get to connect the dots between the people that I've spoken to. And Ryan Reynolds, who is, again, a member of the Everyday Athlete Clubhouse, and he's been a huge part of the Run, Try, Bike community. He and I were talking about this idea that I want to do this, and 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 I want to do these things, kind of like the bucket list item that you talked about, and how we put pressure on ourselves to do the bucket list item that it becomes almost unenjoyable. And I said to him, for the last 3 years, every January that rolls around, I'm like, I want to make crepes. Like, I want to try to make crepes. And then I never make crepes. I don't even buy the batter. I don't have the pan. And yet somehow it's been on this to-do list for 3 years. Just cross it out. Go focus your time on something that matters to you. Like, it doesn't matter whether or not I can make crepes or not. And I love the idea of this idea of the bucket list, that you're like, I'm not interested in the bucket list one and done idea, because I may not learn anything from doing it one time, but I can learn if I'm doing it multiple times, whether that's marathons or writing books or startups for that matter. And I think, to me, and I think you're in agreement, is like, that's how I want to live my life, is getting better at something, not just saying I made crepes, right? Like, okay, cool. You made raspberry crepes, and now what?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think also, I think for me, as I've gotten older, you do realize that I need to be mindful of my time, and it's not unlimited,
Yes.
Both today and then kind of over the longer term. And so I think it can be important to be crossing things off of your list. Things that you had on, like crepes is a great example. Maybe that's actually not serving me. Maybe it's not actually going to be a good use of my time. Maybe there's something else that I would rather be spending my time on that would benefit me more. And that's cool. Figuring that out is great. It's healthy, and cross it off. And maybe you'll add something else to your list that you hadn't thought of before. And that's awesome too. But I think you do need to start to become, I think, a bit more aggressive about, this is something I'm absolutely not going to do. I always thought I would do it. And I'm now realizing, it actually doesn't speak to me in the same way that it did when I first put it on the list a few years ago. And I'm going to spend my time and my efforts elsewhere.
And I think in today's world and society, that's even harder to do, because when you open social media, if I open social media today, because I've said the word crepes, there's a very good chance I'm going to see a video of somebody making crepes, right? And I'm going to be like, oh, and I get reminded of that. And then I have to remember, it's just not important. Like, just go to the French bakery or the French breakfast joint and get crepes, and they'll made for you, and you can, it'll scratch that itch and move on in life. And I wonder, why do people who are in their teens and 20s and 30s don't listen to Jeffrey Weiss, who's in his mid 60s, or to Jason Bahamundi, who's in his mid 50s? Like, don't waste your time or spend your time on things that are nice to do's, as opposed to things that are hell yeses.
Yeah, I think that's just the nature of the world. It's the Wizard of Oz. Like, they couldn't just tell Dorothy. Couldn't tell Dorothy at the beginning, those red shoes. Like, you got what you need. She kind of had to learn it for herself. I think I was probably the same way. I was always a reader, so I did like to learn from books, which meant learning from people with more experience than me and with insights that I didn't have. There's a great quote. I can't remember if it's from Warren Buffett or someone else, but it was, stupid people learn from their mistakes. Smart people learn from other people's mistakes. So I do think we're well served when we look to others who've been down the road that we're about to go down, and perhaps can share with us some things that would help us avoid the potholes. But it's the nature of being young that you do want to go out there and experience things for yourself, and not just listen to the old guy saying, "Sit down, young man. Let me tell you how this is going to go." And I get it. I was there too at one point.
But it's so funny, because I could sit down and listen to old, I'll put that in air quotes for those of you who are listening, old guys tell stories, and it fascinates me to no end. So, for example, we had the class of 1980 Ironman finishers. So it was the second actual Ironman at Kona event. We had three guys, David McGilvoray, Bob Babbitt, and Kurt Madden, who were three of, I think, 20 participants in the 1980 event. And it was a Fireside Chat podcast episode like this. And it was the greatest thing I have done on a Fireside Chat up until that point, because all I had to do was lob in a topic, like what was your nutrition, right? And the 20-something-year-olds today would be like, oh, what kind of gel, what nutrition or electrolytes were you consuming? And Bob Babbitt told me that he got like 7 or 8 packages of Hawaiian rolls that he gave to his crew, which actually had to follow him in a car because there were no aid stations back then in 1980. And like just hearing that opened my mind to like, it doesn't have to be a product like a gel or some like you can eat Hawaiian rolls and still make it through the night, through the Kona Ironman, right?
That must have been absolutely amazing. I love those stories of the early days. Just the whole way in which the race got started is such a legendary story. And those early folks really were pioneers. I mean, I think who would have thought that you could do a race like that back then when it all got started? And, of course, now having benefited from these trailblazers, it's something that is approachable.
The stories are wild, Jeff. I will tell you. So David McGillivray told the story that you had to have crew. They would not allow you to participate in the event unless you had crew. And again, the crew followed you on the bike and the run, like it was a rolling aid station. And what he did is he went through the yellow pages because he didn't have crew. So he just went through the yellow pages, dropped the nickel in the telephone, the payphone, and got people to come and crew him at this event. Like, that's just a wild story, right?
Wow. That's amazing. Look, I think you can still have some of those experiences today. I think for some ultras, you need to have your own support in whole or in part. For my 72-mile race, I did need my own, actually needed it for the whole race through. I think I got one aid station and that was basically it. I think otherwise it was all self-supported. So I had a friend meeting me every 2 hours along the route. And that's exciting. And it's different. And it's not what we're used to. And it's great to be able to benefit from aid stations. But it's interesting when they're not there. And you have to figure out a different way to do it.
I think it's like this sense of adventure, right? Like this idea that I'm going out on my own, even if I have, a handful of people with crew. It's a sense of adventure that also allows us to connect with our crew on a level that's deeper than rolling into an aid station and getting, a snack from somebody who you engage with for 30 seconds and may never see again. Whereas if you're getting crew help and aid station help from your folks for every 2 hours, you find a rhythm and you get to learn each other. And what, I'm sure as you're rolling in, you might be yelling, hey, I need Coke or, pickles or whatever. And they already know, they could see it. Okay. And it becomes like this amazing orchestra and symphony working together that becomes an experience that winds up in a book at some point, right?
Absolutely. And in my case, for that particular race, Jason Schwartz, a good friend who did that for me, he was key to my success in that race because I hurt my knee and had to make some changes, and he really encouraged me in the right way to keep going, to persevere, and it was great. And if it hadn't been for him, I'm not sure I would have finished it. If it had been someone else who just wasn't sophisticated about racing, he'd run ultras himself. I think I would have been a bit lost. But I think he really reinforced that this was something that I could actually work my way through and get to the finish line, which ended up being fantastic.
Is your personality, I want to ask you this question, is your personality when it comes to racing the same as it is to writing books? So here's what I've heard, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. When it comes to writing books, I'm going to do research, I'm going to lay it out, I'm going to do all of these things. Is racing the same way, or are you the kind of person who rolls up to a race, a plan, an idea, but not something that you've researched aid stations and miles X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to eat this amount of food, and I'm going to drink this amount of liquids and everything else? Are they the same person, or are they two different people when it comes to racing and writing?
Absolutely the same person. I go in with usually not just one plan, but 2 or 3 plans. In other words, fallback plans. If things don't go exactly the way that I am hoping, but I do go with a plan that's quite thought out. All my nutrition is absolutely thought out, what I'm going to bring, when I'm going to consume it, where I'm going to get it, whether it's something I need to carry on my body, or whether it's something I'm going to get from an aid station. But I try as much as I can to eliminate surprises. You can't eliminate all of them. and you have to factor that in, that there are going to be some things that you hadn't counted on during the race. But yeah, I think it all through. And not because it translates into me placing high in races or anything like that, but I do think it enhances my experience. And I do think it is a translatable skill. It's part of what I love about racing. I think it translates into business as well. Just being methodical, being thoughtful, being organized. Yeah, I mean, honestly, one of my favorite parts of racing is the night before a race and just laying out everything and thinking through how I'm going to use it. Do I really need this? What about that? And it's fun. I think logistics and planning, it's one of the great thrills of long races.
It's so wild to me because when it comes to business, I'm way more methodical than when it comes to racing. I know people will plot out their nutrition down to the calorie and their hydration down to the ounces. And I will get like sandwich bags and I'll put in like just a couple of things for drop bags. And then you'll see people with 5-gallon bags with all kinds of stuff in there. And I'm the exact opposite. And I think a large part of it is that I have been planning my days for business and everything else. And I'm just tired of planning. And so I'm going to go execute my race this way. And the research I will do is what is going to be at the aid station, what kind of food, what kind of liquids are they going to have at the aid station, so that I know that when I get there, I can eat and drink and get the calories in. I'm not racing fasted or famished at all. Don't get me wrong. I'm eating whatever they have at the aid station. I'm drinking whatever they have at the aid station. And I'm fortunate that I have a gut that can process that. I'm very, very fortunate. And so I take a less methodical approach to racing because of that. And I just find it wildly fascinating that people can have so many different approaches to how they train and prepare for a race as well as execute on the race. And you have to go through the process of figuring it out for yourself versus just going, well, this worked for Jeffrey, so it must work for me too, right? Like that's just not how any of this happens.
I totally agree. It has to match up with your personality. And I think everybody's different and there's no sort of right or wrong here. I think for me, the one time when it really paid dividends was I ran the Tokyo Marathon in 2024. It ended up being a fantastic experience. It ended up being a PR for me, much to my surprise, 10 years after my prior PR. And one of the challenges in Tokyo is that they have some incredibly strict rules. No litter. And if they see you littering, you can be yanked off the course. And you can't bring a bottle onto the course. So I always carry like one hydration bottle. In part, I like to supplement between water stations, and in part, it's just like I want to have it just in case.
Yes,
I end up being more. But there, it's like, okay, you can't do it. So what can you do? And so I did a bunch of research on Facebook and other places, and you could buy these pre-filled bottles, and there were different stores where you could get them. They had some with juice, and they had this one particular brand. I'm forgetting now the name. But it had to be the right one. And so I found it. I bought 2 of them. I wore a hydration vest, had one in each one. And it ended up that what was in there wasn't actually water. It was almost like a gel sort of substance, but it was perfect. And so each time I would just take like a kind of a mouthful, hold it in my mouth. It was very satisfying, then swallow it. It carried me all the way through. I think I finished the second one probably right before the end of the race. And honestly, I don't think I would have gotten that PR if I hadn't had that. And I saw on Facebook other people saying, oh my God, it was so terrible. Like I couldn't have any hydration with me. It's like, well, you could have, but you did need to invest the time to figure it out. And so that one for me was quite rewarding that I made the effort and it paid off.
So was it that you could buy a product prior to the race and then you just carried it in your vest, or did you have to buy it on the course?
No, you had to buy it prior to the race, like at a 7-Eleven, which are quite big there. They had other convenience stores. You had to buy it. You had to find one of these particular brands. It had to be sealed. You couldn't bring it there open, and it couldn't be your own water bottle.
Gotcha.
And as long as you had that, you'd be allowed to bring that out onto the course. Of course, you had to keep it with you the whole time. You couldn't.
Right.
If you were going to throw it away, it had to be into a garbage can, not just the way we chuck things in races. In the States, they don't do that there. But yeah, that was for me. That was super exciting to figure it out and to find that it actually worked for me really, really well.
That's really cool, and I think that to your point, doing that little bit of research, which I would do too, is like let's look at what's on course for me, and then if I was searching for what's on course, I would have found out. Sorry, sir, you can't bring your own because I'm with you. Like I love to have my own handheld so that I can take a sip. Sometimes it's just a nervous reaction to take a sip because I'm in the middle of being hurt, meaning it's painful and like just a distraction as opposed to anything else. But I think that that's the key. So here's my next question. Are you a person who trains with your nutrition and hydration as you race? So for example, our community manager for Run Try Bike, Santino Williams, he and I are racing the Oakland Marathon at the end of March. And for me, I practice my nutrition and hydration as if I'm going to be doing it on the race. So I'm carrying 400 calories an hour. I'm drinking, I'm doing all these things. And it dawned on him that all these years he's been training in a different way than he's been racing. And he doesn't feel like he's been able to fulfill his potential in finishing times at races because all of a sudden he's like, oh, I probably need more calories or liquids or whatever. So when you're training, are you training the way you would race, or are you purposely doing something different so that on race day, when you actually do execute your nutrition hydration plan, it's more successful for you? In other words, sort of like putting a donut on a bat while you're in the on deck circle. And then when you take the donut off and you step up to the plate, the bat is much lighter so you can swing it faster.
I'm with you. I like to do pretty much exactly during training what I'm going to do in a race. I'm a big fan of the nothing new on race day motto, whether it's clothes, whether it's nutrition, whatever it might be. Now, having said that, I'm fortunate that I have kind of a cast iron stomach. So if they have something at an aid station, I'm hungry and it's not something I've eaten before, I'll eat it. I won't say, well, wait, I haven't had it before. I don't know if it's going to. Now, of course, other people aren't so fortunate. And so they have to be more careful about not taking something in that they haven't practiced with. But I think as much as possible for me, I want to control the controllable, and I can control the nutrition to a great extent by practicing with it, coming up with, I take it according to a timetable and, whatever it is every 30 minutes. And I like to stick with that. And it seems to work well for me.
I think that's a really good point too, is the timetable versus the distance table. Because especially at ultras, especially if in a mountain ultra, right? So in a mountain ultra, a mile might take you 10 minutes because that section is flat. And then the next mile might take you 40 minutes because you're climbing, 1,200 feet in a mile. And so if you're doing it time-based, then it's just consistently there as opposed to distance-based, which is going to be incremental or intermittent, I should say, not incremental. And that changes the formula for how well you can take food in. Here's a question for you. What's the thing during an ultra that you must have when it comes to nutrition and hydration? And I will answer it first so you can have a second to think. This question came about earlier this month on Threads, and my answer was Welch's fruit chews, because I was given them while I was racing Cocodona, and in the moment, it was like heaven sent. It was utopia. I don't know what it was about them. They basically have no calories, but it was something to chew on. And they've become the thing that I'm always looking for at aid stations when I get into sort of like that hurt locker moment, right? It's like my blanket all of a sudden. Is there a food item that you would, if you could make it happen, you could tell every race director, please have this at every aid station? Is there one food that you would tell them?
Ghirardelli chocolate with caramel.
Oh, wow.
Got really into candy for my 72 miler. And I won't use candy in a marathon, but for ultras, I do always have some candy because that's where you can really get down. And candy, you always look forward to. For a very long race, you kind of need to move beyond gels. In other words, gels, but something else in addition to that. That something else it could be a sandwich, it could be a banana, whatever it might be. But candy is a tremendous way to reward yourself. Payday candy bars are another thing, and they've got a lot of good stuff in there, nuts and chocolate, and you look forward to them. And, 5, 6, 7 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours in a race, you're not really looking forward to that next gel, but you will always look forward to that candy. And so, and it's a guilt-free time to eat it. You're, burning incredible calories. You know that it is just because of the race that you're allowing yourself to do it. You're not going to go out tomorrow and buy a huge bag of these things and start becoming, addicted to them. But yeah, that would be my go-to.
One of the tricks I use is during ultras, I buy the Snickers fun size, the real smaller ones, and I put them in my mouth and I allow it to melt. I don't bother to chew it. I allow it to melt. And for some reason, the amount of time that it takes to melt, I feel like I've gone miles upon miles upon miles. I've probably gone next to nowhere because they're small, but the mental connection between that melting and how far I've gone then changes everything for me. Because like now I'm back in it, and I'm sure the sugar that's in the Snickers gives me some energy to get going. But it always feels like, oh man, I'm way further down the road than I was when I put this thing in my mouth. So that's sort of like, again, like the safety blanket for me.
I love that. I think we so benefit from these psychological trick, maybe is the wrong word, but these little devices that we use in races to get us through the rough spots, and to just keep us moving, down the course. And I think that's a really, really great one. Plus, it's just great to savor something really tasty, and that's a nice way to do that.
Yeah, it's funny. Like now that I think about it, my running vest is like a candy shop. To your point, like when I'm out there, so I have little Snickers. I also have the mints that like every grandmother has in their bowl in their house. The little spiral ones, like those are always good for me because to your point, like if you're constantly eating gels and everything else, for me, my mouth gets this like taste in it that I need to get rid of, and that mint. I don't know if it's the connection to brushing your teeth in the morning or whatever it is, and it revives me, and it's like okay, let's keep going, especially if you're doing a long enough race and you go through the night and then, the sun comes up the next morning, like having that mint is almost like brushing your teeth and okay, it's a new day and let's get going again.
Oh, that's brilliant. I'm also a big believer in better to have and not need than to need and not have. And so,
Yes.
I do always try to think through what could I need? Maybe replacement Band-Aids, salt tablets, which have been very variable for me. Sometimes I desperately need them. Other times I carry them and never really needed to access them. But within limits, like to try to err on the side of making sure that there are not going to be any kind of failures along the route where I needed something and it wasn't there for me.
Do you have any of these types of things that you use when you're writing?
My big thing for writing is noise canceling headphones.
Okay.
On which I play nothing. So I just put them on, and I feel like Maxwell Smart in with the cone of silence, except that it actually works. So I put it on, hit noise cancel, and it's just whoosh, all sound disappears, and set my alarm for 1 hour and write for 1 hour, not more, not less. And,
If I didn't age us earlier by saying you're in your mid 60s and I'm in my mid 50s, the Maxwell Smart reference has done that.
Yeah. Yep. Who could forget? Who could forget the cone of silence?
If I see you talking on a video at some point with a shoe to your head, then I know.
Yeah. Exactly.
For all you youngsters,
in my defense, there was also the movie like within the last few years with Steve Carell, which was
true.
They brought back a lot of those things, but yeah, the series itself was unforgettable.
For all you youngsters out there, go Google it. You'll have a good time with it. It's pretty funny.
Exactly.
Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a great second chat with you. I've appreciated the first chat. It was a great one. And this one has been just as good. Where can people find you? Where can they find your book that they want to purchase based on this conversation that we've had?
Thank you so much. And it has been totally great to reconnect. I've really, really enjoyed it. The book Racing Against Time, you can find it on Amazon in paperback, Kindle version, or an audio. And I have a website, jeffreyweissauthor.com.
And that Weiss is with two S's, folks, Weiss. Jeffrey,
Yes,
thank you so
indeed.
much for your time. I appreciate it. We'll have to set up another interview when you're as your racing season unfolds and your racing against time starts to develop, and then how this next chapter unfolds for the seventh decade, the future, the future book.
Fantastic. I would absolutely love that.
Have a great one. Thank you.
You too. Take care, Jason.
For those of you that have stuck with us for this nearly 1 hour conversation, thank you so much. Time is the greatest gift that we can give to each other, and you've given me the gift of your time. Thank you. As I mentioned when we started the show, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and if you're on Spotify or YouTube, leave us a comment. We want to make sure that we are doing everything to bring you the best podcast that we can. If there's anything that we can improve upon, email me, jason@runtrimag.com. I will take your email to heart, and I will do what I can to make it better for you. Appreciate your time. Come back next week when we chat with Coach Wendy Mader about racing Ironman and marathons for the last 20 or so years and the lessons that she's learned along the way. Have a great one, everybody. We'll see you.